I think we're ready to go. Thank you, Elizabeth. Welcome to Elizabeth Kessler, the chair of Chicago Wilderness.
Thank you, Laura, and good morning, everyone. And we appreciate everybody making time this morning on this beautiful April morning during Earth Week to join us for our quarterly Executive Council meeting. We have a wonderful day planned for you this morning, very interactive with a variety of speakers. And we have many partners that are joining us, and we appreciate that you extended this invite. And as you get going, if from your organization, if there's others that you feel that you want to send the invite to, again, more the merrier to assist us for today's agenda. Laura, can you advance the first slide, please? Next, please. Okay, we're going to just take care of our regular routine business this morning, and everyone through the meeting link would have received the agenda packet. Thank you, Laura, for putting that together, and for all the members that assisted in preparing those materials. We'd like to move to approve the consent agenda, and on the items on the consent agenda this morning, we have the Executive Council meeting minutes from February 3rd, 2021. The acceptance of our treasurer's report for Q1. And again, as you can see, we're doing very well, and we'll be making some investments that you're going to see and be part of today, and some other discussions, as well as the acceptance of our new members. So if I could have a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Motion to approve the consent agenda by Mike.
Thank you, Mike. Do I have a
second by Jim Anderson.
Jim, thank you so much. Are there any discussions for those in attendance on the items on the consent agenda? Hearing none.
No.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
No.
No, okay, all right, I hear none. So all those in favor, motion by saying aye.
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 And those opposed, nay. Okay, so the consent agenda is approved. The next item of business is the, go ahead and advance, Laura, we took those all together. Okay, and those are the new partners. Again, we'd like to welcome Grace Farm Studios, Chicago Adventure Therapy, Panther Training, McGinty Brothers, Wisconsin Society for Ornithology, and Wildlife Habitat Council for becoming members and partners of the Alliance. So thank you and congratulations, and we're glad to have you here. Okay, I wanted to give an update of where we are on our Justice, Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion consultant. As you recall, when we gathered prior, the Executive Council authorized us to prepare an RFP to go out to look for consultants. And we had done that prior to the end of the year. We also put together a JEDI working group of partners and others in the Chicago Wilderness area to assist us in reviewing the metrics and how we would go about reviewing the responses received. From there were two top contenders that we did review and interview by members of the working group and members of the steering committee. And that has led us to where we are at today and need your approval to move forward. We're very excited about the work, and for those that have been joining us through the Cafe series, as well as all the great work that went into Congress before about a year ago. As you recall, we had to pivot during the COVID pandemic, and we were there later to be able to offer and appreciate all the sponsors for Dr. Carolyn Finney. But this continues in those efforts, and the timing is really perfect because as we begin our work today on our strategic green visioning, this will be a thread that will run through the whole alliance. So what we're proposing of the two consultants, we did send out a promo for Be the Healing Conference. That is at the end of the month, and again, an opportunity. Organic Oneness was one of the contenders, and they are part of that conference, and so we did send that out to everybody. So if you have opportunity to attend, would encourage that, because that will continue our conversation. But the consulting firm that we felt will best suit our work ahead, and it begins with an assessment that would be done this year, would be with Cream City of Milwaukee. The material from August Bell and her team is in your packet. And they propose a 3-phase process for us. And the first piece would be the assessment. And what is really exciting about this is this would allow us to get a baseline of where we are on Jedi related focus within our own organizations and within the Alliance, and all that data will then be used to begin to shape our work, and will tie very greatly into our green vision. So that is at a cost of, I believe here, hold on a second, $12,000, and then it would be continued on by doing educational virtual workshops for another $24,500, and that would likely take us into next year during 2022, and then followed up by developing a action plan or roadmap for this work. So our total proposed expenditure is $41,550. And today, to move forward to negotiate a contract with Cream City, we need to have this authorized by the Executive Council. Is there a motion to move this forward?
Moved by Maggie Solis.
Thank you, Maggie. Do we have a second?
I second.
And who is that?
Donna Preppershaw, League of Women Voters.
Thank you, Donna. All right, so we have a motion, a first and a second. Any discussion? And we'll be able to answer questions.
Hey, Elizabeth, this is Jim Jaroslaw. Could I just confirm that the 41.5, that is that's funding the assessment and the workshops and some additional activities? Because the numbers that you quoted didn't add up to 41.5. I'm just trying to make sure I got that straight.
Yeah, so it's $12,000 for the analysis, which would be fiscal year 2021.
Mhm.
The education and virtual workshop facilitation, that's for 24.5, and then there is the development of the roadmap, the strategic action plan for 5,000.
I got it. That adds up. Okay, thank you.
Sure, thank you. So it'd be over our 2 fiscal years. Any other questions? Okay, hearing none, we'll call for the vote. All those in favor, motion by saying aye.
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 And those opposed, nay. Wonderful, thank you, and thank you to our Jedi working group. Before I turn over, I want to say one last thing. You know, as we look to this year, it's a unique time. The Alliance is celebrating its 25th anniversary this year, believe it or not, since we were created. And we did receive another gift by George Robb, Dr. Robb, another wonderful gift from his trust. And I just want to thank Laura Riley and her stewardship and the gift that we've received. He is still with us today. As you know, we've named our award program in his honor, but he continues to give, and he very much cherished the work that the Alliance does. So again, a very proud moment. I know he's looking at us as we continue our great work today. So again, thank you, George, and thank you, Laura. And now I am going to turn it over to Jim Anderson, who is going to introduce our consultants for today. Jim?
Great, thank you, Elizabeth. I appreciate that. The people that I'm about to introduce, I think may be known to many of you, but I would like to introduce this is the consultant that Chicago Wilderness has chosen to engage with to help facilitate the process of seeking alignment of our goal development process, which Daniel and Amy will be talking about in a little bit. But the Institute for Conservation Leadership strives to inspire collaborations that are holistic and conducive to supporting collaborative work and outcomes. They emphasize that individuals and organizations working within frameworks of the whole can achieve success that is integrated and part of a larger system. Their focus is on fostering non-centric leadership, strengthening relationships, building shared infrastructure, and helping members, leaders, mentors, and mentees to be comfortable with the complexity and ambiguity that naturally occurs with large alliances. They have worked with a wide variety of organizations, including the Delaware River Watershed Initiative, the Alliance of National Heritage Areas, the Cleveland-Cohaga County Food Policy Coalition Alliance, that's a mouthful, Green Lands, Blue Waters in the Upper Mississippi River watershed, Smart Growth, California, and then more known to us, Vital Lands in Illinois. They also have worked with the Lake County Forest Preserve. They helped kick off our initial 100-year vision, have come back to upgrade the objectives after about 6 years. You know, as you walk through today, you'll see that they have a very interesting process. The last time they were here, we had notes all over the wall, and I wondered how they were going to bring that all together. Yet they did bring it together very well and brought it back to us. And so we really like the process they walk us through. And so I'm going to not steal their thunder, but then I'd like to introduce to you the two representatives that are here today. Diane Russell, she is the president of the Institute for Conservation Leadership. And she's worked with local, state, regional activist groups in the conservational and environmental community since about 1985, and has worked with over 1,000 organizations across North America. And with us also today is Peter Lane, who used to be a member of the Institute for Conservation Leadership, but now he is a organizational development consultant, trainer, and facilitator for individuals and teams that are committed to ongoing learning, reflection, and making positive changes from themselves and their organizations. So with that, I'd like to turn it over to Peter, who's going to sort of walk us through how we're going to work through the day.
Great. Thank you, Jim. It's great to be with all of you today. As Jim mentioned, I've been with ICL either a staff or consultant for over 20 years and have done quite a bit of work in Chicago area. So it's great to reconnect with all of you and have an opportunity to engage with Chicago wilderness for the next few months. So Diane and I have, with the planning team, planned this session. We've got for the next hour and a half, 2 hours or so, have the following outcomes. Is one, to really have this be an opportunity for all of you to better understand where Chicago wilderness is kind of at right now. Obviously, planning process has started, and so this is really just a good opportunity to sort of re-engage and see where things are at right now. We're also going to share some information about network theory and give all of you an opportunity to apply it to your work. In all of the work that we do with you through this process, one of the things we want to do is really deepen the learning around how to work as a network and collaborate. And so we will be weaving that throughout, including today's session. And then thirdly is to have an opportunity for all of you to provide some feedback about your realities and needs and how you want to engage in this process as well. Obviously, the last year has been quite a change for so many organizations and thinking about how to adapt and innovate. So we want to sort of take a breath and get your sense on what the trends are. And then towards the end, with the agenda, we'll also spend some time just getting a sense of who's in the room, so to speak. We know that with networks, having an opportunity to know who's here, get to know each other is really important. And so we are going to build in lots of opportunity to engage with your colleagues in Chicago wilderness. Diane and I will also, as I mentioned, share information about collaborative networks. We're going to go through something called organizational versus network mindset and give you an opportunity to do some thinking about that in terms of your own collaborative efforts and Chicago wilderness. And then we will also give you a good amount of time to talk with your colleagues about current realities. Sort of, one, recognizing that planning has begun. What is that kind of set in motion? What are you seeing? What trends? How has the last year impacted the work that you're doing? And then finally, we're going to take some time to get your input into this process that we're engaging you with, what you'd like to get out of it, what you would like to see happen, how we can build a process that really helps you be engaged and help you get the most out of it. And then lastly, we'll finish with some next steps and sort of where things will go from today. So that's where we're headed. We should finish by noontime. And I think I will turn it over to Diane, who's going to lead our introductory exercise.
Thanks so much, Peter. And it is good to be with you all. I would rather be with you in Chicago, but to be there in spirit on Zoom also feels really good. The Institute is no stranger to the Chicagoland area, and we really enjoy our work with you. We are a little over 60 folks gathered here, and so one of the fun things to do is to understand a little bit of Chicago wilderness via who's in the room. And we are going to use a tool called Mentimeter. And I would invite you now, you can do this on your phone, many people do, anywhere you can get a browser, and type in the www.menti.com. And then it will prompt you to use the code 3273 and then 5896. And in just a minute, I'm going to switch screens so that we can see the results of the question, the 4 questions that I want to ask to kind of kick this off. Okay. The code will still be there. Don't panic. I just have to switch screens real quick. And I love it. Folks are already on the first question, which is, we'd like to know what kinds of groups are here. We know some of you are individuals, but see if you can find one of these groups that can find it. If you missed the code on the first slide, it's at the very top still in terms of logging on to a browser and adding in your input here on this first question. All right, just give this a little bit more time. Hopefully everybody's finding their way to the tool. This is the first of 4 questions we're going to use to warm up. This is great. Got predominance in local government, which is wonderful, followed by the Museum Zoo Nature Center crowd. Local nonprofits come in next. Still shifting a little bit. Looks like state and federal government just took the lead over regional, state, and national nonprofit groups. So this is great. The poll will stay open, but it's just always good. I think one of the things I love about Chicago Wilderness is how diverse it is and how many different kinds of voices you have in the mix to work on the issues. Okay. And There we go. All right. Second question is open now. What we are interested in is how long you personally have been involved with Chicago Wilderness. I think one of the things we appreciated working with the planning group was that there's a mix of people who have been involved for a long time, folks who are just getting started, how important it is in any network to continue to create an understanding of how things function, especially with newcomers, but also with the oldsters. Like, they need to understand how things are coming and moving and shifting. So this is good data for us to have. Looks like answers are still coming in a little bit. All right, this is very interesting that we have over 25 folks that have been involved for more than 10 years. Next largest is a chunk of folks that have been involved for 1 to 3 years. So that's excellent. It's good to know. Nice distribution, actually. So this next question is open-ended. We would love to know what's the driving why for you to participate in Chicago Wilderness. So just add your input there. This is going to present as a word cloud, which will be changing and moving for a while. But it's an interesting way to get a sense of the why, which in working in networks and collaboration is really critical. One of the things you'll hear us talk a lot about is where is their energy? And that energy is often driven by your why. One of the things that seems to be constant in the word cloud is collaboration and connection and having impact. Those have been pretty consistent even as new things are coming in. This is fabulous. And this will be something we can give back to Chicago Wilderness. This might actually be an interesting graphic to use in talking about the value of Chicago Wilderness and in helping people know what is uppermost in people's minds in terms of what they're looking for when they join and participate in and give time to and help move the goals forward with Chicago Wilderness. Okay.
Diane, the other thing that I see that's interesting is the word partnership and partnerships has emerged as it's gone on too. It's just kind of an interesting aspect of collaboration, partnering with others.
So right. Yeah. All right. We're going to go to the next one. This is the final question that we're going to ask to get started today. And this is less of a why, but more of a specific what. What do you want to gain or get from participating in Chicago Wilderness in the coming year? Those who have heard us talk about networks know that the energy in the network is really important. And the energy is often high when the give and the get for those participating in the network is high and is synchronized. So this exercise will give us some information to use. It will give the leadership of Chicago Wilderness and the goal groups a chance to understand what is motivating members and what they would like in return from their giving time, energy, and attention to Chicago Wilderness. And again, these are just going to move along as input comes in, but the full data set can be downloaded and shared and will be after the meeting So as we're looking at planning and work ahead, we'll be able to hopefully attune to the kinds of themes that we see from what folks want in participation. These are wonderful. One of the things, I don't know what you're seeing, Peter, but one of the things I'm appreciating is that what people want to gain or get is actually also connected to what they want to give. There's a lot of people leaning into offering things, sharing, connecting, bringing their resources.
Yeah, I would say too, a lot of it is also about change, right?
Yeah. Yeah, action has come up more than once. Doing things is definitely part of what folks want to see happen, as well as doing it strategically and thoughtfully and in connection with others. Okay. This is excellent. This is a great start. I guess we should warn you that if you thought you were going to just listen all this 2 hours and you're trying to multitask, this is going to be very interactive. So we're hoping that you'll really tune in and participate in a variety of ways. We're going to give you a chance to do that. Okay. Stop sharing Mentimeter for now. Again, we will have those available to you. And I think at this point, we are going to get grounded a little bit more in Chicago Wilderness. And Daniel Suarez is going to give us a bit of a tour and orientation to Chicago Wilderness to kick that off.
Thank you, Diane. I'll wait for those slides to pop up. Perfect. Well, nice to see everyone's faces today. Again, my name is Daniel Suarez. I'm a member of the Chicago Wilderness Steering Committee, have been for a couple of years. Based on that last question, realized I was in that 6 to 10 year bucket of experience with Chicago Wilderness. And I know that for a lot of new folks, and I know that there are a lot of, based on that survey, that there are a lot of folks brand new to Chicago Wilderness are still kind of wrapping their heads around it. It's a very complex alliance with 25 years of history. So we totally understand when folks come into the fold, it's not always clear exactly how all the pieces fit together. And over the next few very brief minutes, I'm going to try to put those pieces together in your mind and hopefully give you a sense as to where, if you're not already active in Chicago Wilderness, multiple ways where you can kind of make an impact. So I'm going to talk about all of this. We're going to break it down chunk by chunk, but I do want you to pay attention to that very bottom line of these are all of the subcommittees and teams that are currently working within Chicago Wilderness. I don't think it's a fully exhaustive list, but it encompasses a lot of the active groups right now. So you can go to the next slide. So Chicago Wilderness, the why, and in 25 years of history, those goalposts have changed a little bit. The emphasis has changed. And in this most recent iteration of Chicago Wilderness, we've developed this ambitious, bold, green vision. And it's a green vision that takes Chicago Wilderness in exciting new directions, appealing to new audiences, changing the way we think about conservation and how it intersects with things like climate, with human health, with justice. And Amy will talk a little bit about the Green Vision in more detail after I go. And the what of Chicago Wilderness, right? We're working across all of these different buckets. We're doing on the ground work, science work, engagement work, but across the board, it's always about planning, measuring, documenting, regional data, best practices, finding out what's working, amplifying it across the entire region for maximum impact. You can go to the next slide, Diane. And the goals. So these goals of the Green Vision are wide and varied, and again, cover that diversity of audiences that we're hoping to engage. It's very important to understand that while these are each, broken out into individual goals, there is lots and lots and lots of overlap between these goals. And I think that's one of the most, where we're gonna benefit a lot from working with ICL in understanding how we can best structure the work across goals and how we can structure the work among committees that are embedded under these goals. So I'll say really briefly that under all of these goals, you can kind of place committees based on subject matter. Some of these committees have been in existence for 20 years or more. Some of these committees are brand new. The teams all meet at their own discretion. They have independent goals and structures. Some are focused more on network building. Others are more focused on the groundwork or data collection or engagement. And inside all of these committees, you can kind of see previous iterations of Chicago Wilderness. So folks might remember the Priority Species Initiative, the Wildlife Committee, the Grassland Bird Task Force. These are all active committees that also kind of filter into those previous goals of Chicago Wilderness. Like I mentioned before, some of these committees have a very long history, like the Wildlife Committee, the Natural Resources Management, Education, and then some are brand new. So like for Goal 2, Agriculture, we formed a brand new agriculture team to tackle this work because it's something Chicago Wilderness had not been doing before. The Student and Emerging Professionals Group, which we've embedded under Goal 5, is another exciting group that's going to push us to provide more resources for younger students and young professionals within Chicago Wilderness. And other programs like the Environment and Social Equity Community of Practice, which is a program that was developed outside of Chicago Wilderness and is being brought into Chicago Wilderness, again, to maximize that impact and amplify its effects. So it's important to remember that not all of the committees fit neatly under one particular goal. So there will be some work to kind of understand how we can work with existing committees to get their work to kind of filter up into goals, but then also understand that these committees are independent and they have their own goals and desires within those groups. So I think, as I mentioned before, that's one of the big areas we stand to gain a lot from in working with ICL and understanding how all of these different pieces, doing all of these different things can be kind of put on the same page and filtering up into the same to the same goals. You can go to the next slide. Beautiful. And the resources, and I'll rush through this the rest of this. So resources, I like to think of this as kind of our programs, our products, our tools, and our awards. So you might remember some of the older resources that Chicago Wilderness and the tools that were developed, like the Biodiversity Recovery Plan, the Green Infrastructure Vision, the Climate Action Plan for Nature, and then we've got some newer ones. So the CW Hub Mapping is the brand spanking new tool that we're developing to work across all of these goals, a very visual tool that's going to help Chicago Wilderness members and funders and the general public understand the impacts we're having on the ground. And then really important to call out some of our awards and accreditations like the Excellence in Ecological Restoration Program and the Force of Nature Awards. You can go to the next slide. And the governance. So this, I'll end on this slide. And So the executive council, who is the executive council? We are all the executive council. We're all members. There really are not many barriers to entry into the executive council, but it's basically a forum where we can rely on the diverse perspectives and experiences of our valued partners, and can give guidance on where we're going and how we're doing it. And I think all of you, many of you on this call, were privy to those discussions as we were developing the Green Vision goals over the course of over a year. The steering committee, which I'm a part of, is a crucial body within Chicago Wilderness. Again, very, very minimal barriers to entry. We're very pleased that over the last couple of years, we've gotten a ton of interest in serving on the steering committee from members representing the geographic diversity of Chicago Wilderness. And within the steering committee, we have a great diversity of the positions that people hold within organizations. So we have folks that are on the ground doing field work, out in the field, getting their hands dirty. We have folks that are somewhere in between, kind of like me, play desk jockey sometimes and get my hands dirty other times. And then we've got executive directors and the very high level folks around the table. So it's a great representation of Chicago Wilderness, and having those diverse perspectives around the table really helps. And last but not least, the corporate council, made up of many of our corporate members. And this is a separate body that again meet. They have a very strong role in helping with fundraising and work on private lands. These big corporate campuses, many of them have incorporated conservation-friendly practices on the land management on their properties. So I know that was a very whirlwind tour through Chicago Wilderness, and Diane, maybe you could just go to the last slide, and so everyone can see all the pieces fitting together one more time. Extremely complex, and I think through this process with ICL, we'll have much better clarity as to how we can synergistically work across all of the goals. And with that, I'll hand it off to Amy Rosenthal from the Field Museum and also of the steering committee.
Thank you, Daniel. Wow, that was an incredible whirlwind tour. And that was a great explanation, I think, of how all these pieces fit together. As we talked about what to do in this session, I thought, gosh, it's a maze. There's a labyrinth of Chicago Wilderness, and it's hard for me to wrap my hands and head around it. But in our discussions with Diane and Peter, putting together this image map, Laura and Daniel have made it clearer to me how we all fit together, what our different parts are. And I'm really grateful for that. I hope it helped all of you too. What I was asked to do today, or I should start with, I'm Amy Rosenthal. I work at the Field Museum and the Keller Science Action Center, and several of my colleagues are here participating today. I'm also a member of the steering committee, just starting this year, and I'm really happy to be here. I was asked today to say a little bit about what we were hoping to get out of this session, why we've brought this together, and then what we hope that this consultation and strategy development process will lead us to. And so as I considered those 2 points, it made me think about a few things. And the first I would say is that the CW Alliance has a long and storied history of advancing conservation across the region. It's captured people's imagination here and elsewhere, and it's connected forest preserves and parks to each other and to everyday people. I think this has had the effect of strengthening restoration efforts, biodiversity conservation, and general support for nature and natural areas across our 4-state, 7-county area. In the last couple of years, as Daniel was describing, we've come together to envision the next phase of our work for our members, all of us, identifying 7 ambitious goals that can operationalize a green vision that includes everyone. So an important focus of this has been on connecting people to nature and expanding our membership and the meaning of our work to more people and more perspectives than ever before. And you can see how that turns into a complex organizational structure, but one that is directed at the entire wilderness region. And to do this well going forward, we really need to be intentional to create a solid foundation, I think, that allows us to successfully complete this next phase of accomplishment. So that's what ICL has joined us to do, to help us be the leaders we want to be, to make that green vision a reality, not just in one state or county, but across all four, from Wisconsin to Michigan, from Chicago to farm country. Today is a major first step in hearing from you where you think we are, what you're jazzed about, and where you hope we can end up together. So your voice and your good thinking are critical to making the next 6 months matter for the next 25. We're really glad to have Diane and Peter with us today to help us light the way. But we planners of this session are particularly grateful to you for your time and your commitment to this work. CW is a beacon of hope when we all work together to get it done. So I want to thank you for being here, for participating actively. And now I'll turn it back over to Diane and Peter.
Thanks so much, Amy. And I really appreciate both Daniel and Amy kind of laying things out very clearly. I think when we know our intentions, it's a lot easier for all of us to step in and offer what we have. And we're going to be talking for the next chunk of the agenda about collaborative networks and how they can frame impact and engagement. And I also want to thank Jim for the very, very kind introduction that he made for Peter and I and for the Institute. And I just want to say 2 or 3 things. One is we are a nonprofit. So we get called consultants, but we really think about ourselves as very mission driven, just like you all are in whatever kind of institution you're in. And we so enjoy coming alongside excellent efforts like Chicago Wilderness and helping them think through things even more. We've always focused on leadership, we've always focused on organizations, and we've always focused on collaboration. And over the last 5 years, we've really dug in and had just a joy, as Jim talked about, working with a whole variety of different groups. So with that, just orientation, always happy to answer any questions about the Institute for Conservation Leadership. But I think we should just step into our work together around networks and network mindsets. And I'm going to hand things over to Peter.
Thanks, Diane. Yeah, I just want to echo too what a great presentation Daniel and Amy you did in setting this up. One of the things that I'm really excited about is how ambitious the work you've set out for yourselves is and how complicated it is. I mean, I'm sure most of you know collaboration, any network is a little bit messy. And so when you've got something as ambitious and as large and as Chicago Wilderness, it just brings another level of that. And so I think for Diane and I, we're really excited to sort of walk with you hand in hand and bringing this all together so that you can really create the kind of network and implementation work that will really lift your work to another level. So the first thing we want to talk about here is what we call the network mindset. So we're going to go through this exercise and then give you all a chance to talk a little bit about it and how you think about it in relation to your own work. One of the things we've learned over the years is how different a network is from an organization. And most of you are part of an organization, so it's almost sort of default that you come into it with an organizational mindset. So Diane and I are going to run through some characteristics, kind of go back and forth, and just talk through that difference between organizational mindset and a network mindset. So the first one is around direction. So if you think about an organizational mindset, organizations are, they do a lot of planning. There's sort of tight control. There's a lot of structure, strategic planning. So there's a lot of sort of boundedness with organizations. On the other hand, with a network, pass it to you, Diane.
I think a lot of the best networks that we see are much more loosely controlled and emergent, which is exciting, especially if you think about a year like this last year when we had to adapt really quickly. And it also drives people who have a really strong organizational mindset a little crazy, because you think you've got the focus, but then you follow the energy and the new issue and the opportunity, and the strategy emerges in a different way. And so, especially for a group like Chicago Wilderness, you need both in some ways. You need to bound it. But I think that many of the new things that you're doing are probably things that you're following that have emerged in the discussion and in the planning. Oops.
So the second aspect is what we're calling strength. And if you think about an organization, they're driven by hiring people who have individual expertise and their individual effort. So staff have come with strengths and competencies that really help the organization drive the activities that have been planned. It's really based on that expertise and effort.
And on the network side, things are actually more driven, and the strength of a network is determined by the amount of connection and trust that's created among the partners. For something as large as Chicago Wilderness, there is the we, the big we, but then some of those connections and trust are actually strongest within smaller units and smaller focuses within Chicago Wilderness. But I guess one of the things that's been interesting for us is that some long-term collaborations forget about the need to continue and continuously build connections and trust among their members. And without that, it's hard to have enough go power, if you will.
The third is activity. So if you think about your strategic plan at your organization or how you structure your work, generally it's through programs and services. It's the different ways that you accomplish your mission, right? So you've got very set educational programs or land conservation, stewardship, advocacy, ways in which you interact with the public and others.
And on the network side, the language that we encourage, and we also see it come to life, is more not staid and defined, super focused programs and services, but more experiments and platforms are the things that drive the energy and the connections that can happen. And so having an experimental mind of, let's try this. We may not be able to completely lock it down, but let's try this together. And let's create platforms so that we can connect with each other and so that work can move forward. Just enough connections and just enough platforms to be able to support the experiments.
And the next one is around decisions. So within organizations, they generally tend to be hierarchical. So there's a set structure. Decisions are made by bosses, managers with direct reports who have specific duties and responsibilities related to those programs and services. So again, it's having that level of hierarchy that brings organization and structure to the work that you're doing within an organization. For networks,
and then on the,
go ahead.
Yeah, sorry, Peter. And with a network mindset, it is confusing for those of us that carry around an organizational mindset. And we're not saying that organizational mindset is bad. It's just in the realm of partners and coalitions and collaborations. It's actually better if the connections and trust are strong enough that we're able to give decision-making to those who are closest to the work. And I think sometimes people are often looking up because of the network mindset, but as much as the leadership in a network can give people assurance that they can drive things, that often helps the network be able to make progress in the nodes, in the smaller groups, as well as in an overall capacity.
And then the last one is information. So for organizations, there tends to be a high level of proprietary information, keeping information a little closer to the vest, often kept confidential in ways to support the programs and activities that you're engaged in. And then on the other hand, for the network, it's a lot different.
Yeah, I think the best networks that we get to work with and that we observe create this sense of open and shared information, which when we were looking at what you're looking for out of Chicago Wilderness, and you look at many of the resources that Daniel talked about, a lot of that is creating these open platforms where people can find what they need. Decision-making and work by others is very open and transparent. And that helps also reinforce the kinds of learning and continual experiment that can happen in a network setting. So we hope you had a chance as we were going through those to both think about the value of organizational mindset, especially in an organizational context, but also I hope you were referencing some of your own work in other networks and partnerships that you participate in. And so I just want to give you a quick moment to think for yourself about how have you seen a network mindset at work in other collaborative efforts. So for right now, I'd like you to not necessarily think about Chicago Wilderness, but we want you to bring in your experience in the variety of partnerships and collaborations and alliances that you have a chance to work with. I'm just going to give you a quick second to make a note for yourself on that. And with that in your mind, what we're going to do now is to go into breakout groups. Give you a chance to talk with other Chicago Wilderness members about how you've seen a network mindset at work in other collaborative efforts. Before you go, I am going to just I just will remind you, if you didn't take notes on it, that direction is emergent and loosely controlled. Connections and trust are the strengths. Activities are based on experiments and shared platforms. Decisions are made by those close to the work. And information is open and shared. So I think with that, you're going to get an invitation to go to a breakout group. We'd invite you to take yourself, bring yourself on camera so that you can meet people and have a chance to connect and talk about that conversation.
Okay, thank you. So I think we've got just about everybody back, and trust that you've had a good conversation. Just a chance to kind of talk through network versus organizational mindset. What we'd like you to do now is to pause and just think a little bit about Chicago Wilderness. So if you could, in the chat space, I'd like you to write in any examples of how Chicago Wilderness uses a network mindset. So if you think about direction, sort of loosely closed, emergent, connections and trust, experiments and platforms, information open and shared. How does that show up for Chicago Wilderness? Can you put that into the chat space? Great. A lot of work done by teams, a lot of committee work, work groups, creating different forums, again, group projects. Some great examples. Direction and motivation comes from individuals rather than CW, right? So a lot of times there's certain energy that an individual, a group of individuals brings to the network. It's going so quickly I can barely read it. Platforms for groups to communicate, right? Shared work, great, good. I don't know, anything you're seeing, Diane, as we go through?
I think the bottom-up nature, a lot of what comments are about is how goals get created, they get shared across things. And I think that's one of the things we've heard the planning group talk about, is wanting to lean into that more. How can various goals continue to inform each other across various subgroups that are strong? And so I think the openness of the platforms, I think, is another thing that was popping for me, Peter.
Yeah, I like the one about the CW provides a platform and people close to the work sort of engage, but it's open and shared. Others can sort of plug in as they want or need to. So some great responses there. Thank you. Okay. So I know there's a lot of sitting today. So I'm going to invite everybody to take a quick minute stretch break. One of my side hustles is as a health and wellness coach. So I always try to bring that to the work that I do. So you can turn your
Peter, you just got muted, so
Sorry.
you can unmute yourself.
There we go. How's that? So take an opportunity to stretch. It really brings energy, helps us stay focused. So everybody want to stand up, and we're just going to do a little stretch from the shoulders up, right, over to the right, over to the left, back up. Hello to the sunshine up above, hello. And then take a deep breath as you lower the arms slowly. And hands clasped behind the back, just give a little tug. Say hello to your shoulders. Just let yourself go kind of floppy and move around. And hands behind the head, just a little movement to the right, to the left. Again, just bringing some movement, and take a deep breath, oxygen to the body. And again, just shake it out. And take a minute to stretch however it feels good to you. I like to kind of just move back and forth. Say hello to my hips. Giving them around. And taking a good deep breath, let it out. 1, 2, 3. Great, thank you. So the other thing we want to do is just this idea of understanding our current reality, right? Like the last year has really upended things. I also think whenever you begin a planning process, it kind of sets things in motion. So we'd like to take a minute for each of you to think about how has your work and your organization changed over the last year. I'm going to give you a minute or two, just quiet time to think about that, maybe jot some notes to yourself. And then we're going to pair you up with somebody just to have a chance to talk about that a little bit. So take a minute now to jot some notes down for yourself, do some quiet reflection on how has my work and our organization changed over the last year.
I love that the discussion is just coming right into the main room, and for the sake of time. And also, this is a really important strategic question for us to consider together, not just about how our work has changed, but also how this information about how your work has changed might factor into future plans for Chicago Wilderness. So what we'd like you to do is to go to Menti again. Same link, same numbers. And let's see if I can get to Menti. And what we're interested in, again, is just collecting from all of you a couple answers to this question that all of us that are thinking about Chicago Wilderness can begin to factor in. This is, as you're adding your thoughts here, I guess I would say at the Institute, we've really been encouraging leaders to pause and ask this question, both for their own organizations, but also for collaborative work. In part because the world has shifted, and we as leaders in our work have to be constantly adapting, which is a network principle, right? Emergent strategy, adaptive leadership kind of go hand in hand. But if we don't stop to ask the question, and especially don't ask it collectively, it's hard to then be able to see the patterns that allow us as leaders to kind of get up on the balcony and think about how to lead our organizations. And in this case, we're gathering this information so that those that are thinking about fine-tuning Chicago Wilderness's plan over the next several months can also get their hands around what is happening right now, how the work is happening. So things are coming in. This one is, this is another presentation of Menti where it doesn't move on its own, so I'm moving it. Hopefully slow enough that if you're not adding things right now, you can also absorb some other folks' thoughts.
One of the things that strikes me is on here are like some real challenges, but also some real positive changes. So, I mean, we really are seeing both, the downsides, but also the positive things that have resulted.
This is great. I'm really, this is skimming mostly because of time, and we're using this exercise both as a chance to gather great information. We wanted you to connect with more people, but this data is really going to be helpful for the overall work of Chicago Wilderness. And, I think one of the cool things in networks is hopefully you're also gleaning things that others are saying that you might not have thought about or written down, but resonate with you and your experience as well. Okay. Things are still coming in. Yes, great.
Lots of great information here.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, somebody mentioned that idea, you're able to meet a lot more new people, but you can't necessarily develop the same level of relationship. It's so important in a network.
Great. All right. There's one more really juicy conversation that we want to invite you into. And I'm going to go back to the slides and just tee this up. So This is going to be a little different. In a couple of the other breakouts, people asked if there were facilitators, and we don't have facilitators set up. But this is going to be a longer conversation with a little larger group. There'll be roughly 6 people per group, and we're going to give you about 25 minutes to think together on 2 questions. You are to self-facilitate, which might mean the group just does it all together, or it might be helpful to have a facilitator. And we definitely want to make sure that we capture what happens in your group in notes, and I'll step you through how that's going to work in terms of capturing the notes and the thinking on the 2 questions. So when you get into your breakout group for the 25 minutes, do a round of introductions. It's just the way we get to know each other as humans. Who you are, your role, your group, and where you are physically. I don't think we said that, Peter, but both Peter and I are over in Maryland right now. But it's just good to be able to kind of imagine where folks are. Go round 1, maybe we'll take about 10 to 15 minutes. What do you most want to see happen in the planning process? We know the planning process is in motion, but we really want to give it focus and make it something that the whole of Chicago Wilderness is engaged in, so that come out with implementation plans that are super strong. So what do you most want to see happen in the planning process? And then the second question speaks to some of the other things I was just saying, which is what will help you engage with Chicago Wilderness and gain the most from the process? I think one of the things I'm appreciating is the great work that Daniel and Amy did at the top to kind of frame things. That is part of planning, knowing where we're at, knowing where we've been, knowing where we're at, and then where are we going to go. So we've started that process, but we're curious about what else is going to be helpful to you. So how is this going to work? Yes, you'll get another invitation to go to a breakout group. What I want you to really pay attention to when your invitation pops up on your screen is that you may not have noticed this before, but there's a number for your breakout group. So when that invitation comes up, one of the 6 of you needs to figure out what number group you're in. And I think with 6 chances, we'll probably be pretty good. But that's important because we're doing a fancy way to capture notes that is also open platform and open source so that everybody can see it. I'm going to show this to you as well, but we've created a link that will drop into the chat that allows you to go to a smaller Google Doc. And we're doing this because Google can't take 80 people in the document at the same time. So your number is really important because you need to know which of these hot links to click on to then get to your breakout group area. And then when you get to your smaller document through that hot link, it's going to look like this, where you have a breakout group and the 2 questions. If you're 2, 3, 4, or 5, obviously you're down farther in the document. Just go to that aspect of the document. So let me just demonstrate how this is going to work real quick. You just click on this, go to this document for your breakout group number, and someone among you needs to be brave and take notes in this document. I have also heard of groups having everybody type first and then talk. Totally up to you, as long as everybody gets the link when we drop it. So, okay. The link is in the chat for the hot link to all the other small documents. And you will click on the appropriate breakout, 1 through 5, 6 through 10, blah, blah, blah. Once you see your number for your breakout group assignment. So let me check, Laura, we are good to go and you are going to breakouts. Have a good time. I hope you have great conversations. When people come back from discussion groups, because generally they're smiling, which tells me there was some good energy and people were having good conversations. One of the cool things about the Google Docs technology is it allows us to kind of peek in on your conversations and know what's going on. There's a lot of really good conversations from what we could see, besides the chance that you had you were able to meet each other and connect. But Peter and I are just going to quickly theme some of the very high level pieces, but we'll be doing a deep dive in what you shared in your notes and producing a set of themes that we'll share back out with the executive committee so that folks know. I think one of the standouts for me was the concept of the goal work has been really good and powerful, and there's a desire to also cross-fertilize between the goals and connect the goals so that the kind of the full weight of where the full alliance is going kind of is enmeshed, and then you have chances to continue to innovate and see connections within that. How about you, Peter?
Yeah, I would say, I mean, just reading through them, I mean, some very rich answers. So even to look at them quickly and summarize is a challenge. It was really some great work. But one of the things that I saw was just about, and this I think reflects our conversations with the planning team, is who is engaged and broadening that base and really connecting people to goals. So I think, that question of who and how you connect to more people is front and center as well as part of the themes that I saw.
Yeah, and building on that, I saw in a couple groups the word listen, and it was part of engaging the membership as well as, I can't remember which group it was, but one group talked about listening out, not just within the membership, but also listening outside of the membership to be able to better serve the full region.
Yeah, I was also looking at that second question about what will help you keep you engaged. What do you most want to gain from this process? Sort of a theme that I saw a lot was just around communication and connection. Like, how do you, in something that's so complex and so aspirational, create ways for there to have a level of communication and frankly, connection with individuals that allows you to really coordinate well and move the work forward.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting thing with a group like Chicago Wilderness or a collaboration like it. I mean, in network theory, it's talked a lot about that networks are fundamentally about individuals and individual relationships. And Chicago Wilderness thinks about itself as a network of organizations. That's also true. But I also heard the desire for more connection, both in the planning process as well as the implementation process. How about you, Peter? Did you see anything else?
Well, just working off of that, somebody, a comment, talked about really fostering collaboration and also institutional work. So there's sort of that both and, like, how do we advance the collaborative work, and how do we at the same time advance our individual organization work as well? I think that's present in most networks, right? It's just that sort of both and.
Definitely. I think the final thing I saw was what we've heard from the planning team as we've entered into the work together is this desire to really get clarity on focus. People long for something specific. I know, like, I'm one of those folks, it's like, we nailed that. I want to be able to say we accomplished that. And I think in a collaborative sphere, there's a real longing and a desire to do that. Held also, I love your both and, Peter, like, it's also held in tension though with knowing that at least in every network I've been part of, it's hard to capture exactly what's going on and how the conversations that you have even had today are going to influence work that is happening, that you're leading, that your organization's doing, that you're doing in partnership, in other kinds of partnerships or partnerships underneath Chicago Wilderness. So good stuff. We're going to be able to build on it. Anything else for you, Peter?
I think that's it. Although, I mean, there's just a ton of amazing comments there. So really very useful. Thank you, everybody. So as we begin to close, we also, we want you to think a little bit about one step or action that you will take because of today's conversations or connections. So it doesn't have to be a big thing, but maybe you want to follow up with somebody, or maybe there's something you want to do, or maybe there's something you want to explore a little bit more. So I want you to take a minute in the chat space and just write down one step or action that you'll take. You know, I like to say that Chicago Wilderness is you, right? So it's made up of organizations, but really it's those individuals who are engaged that really drive things. So if you would go ahead and in the chat space, what are you going to do as a result of attending today's session? Great, somebody's going to be following up with new connections. It's absolutely one of our goals. Diane and I was really strengthening some of those connections, building new ones. Mark Bauman reaching out to Indiana partners. Somebody wanting to join a committee, great. Continue to stay engaged in this process. Proactive communication. Sharing with fellow board members. He's going to be helping synthesize inputs from this meeting. Continue to promote from within the organization, right? So all of you also have a role within your own organizations in advancing CW's work. Finding alignment with my work and CW goals and objectives, great. So nice, lots of good steps to take. Become more engaged in the planning, awesome, we definitely want to see that. Promote CW progress to recruit new members. Right, I think that's one of the great work that you're already engaged in is just expanding that membership and who's involved and who's engaged. Continue to invite more people to the table. Excellent. Better at communication. Great. Again, staying engaged in the process. And that's great to see too. I think for Diane and I, working with all of you, one of the things we want to do as this process proceeds is obviously strengthen those goals and your implementation, but we also want to support the network and really build those connections and relationships in a way that's going to really allow the work to take off. Great. Diane, anything else from you, just looking at any of the comments?
No, I'm really pleased. I know that the planning group worked really hard to help kind of bring things into frame, and I do feel like the desire for engagement and people putting their hands up, like we've got a record of it, you know, we've got it in chat. So Laura and the leadership will definitely know now who to come. And like, this is the challenge in the virtual space, is how to do this and how to create platforms that allow for that kind of engagement. So thank you so much for your engagement today and all of the great input. And we're going to continue to think about what the next steps are. And to do that, I'm going to hand things over to John Wagner to kind of take us home.
So this has been terrific. My mind is going around and round, and I hope everyone's is doing the same. I heard a lot of great things today that I had not heard before. And I was reminded of the parable of the three blind men trying to describe the elephant, you know, and we all have a piece of it. We all have a piece of Chicago wilderness. We have some little bubble. Some bubbles are bigger than others. Some are smaller. And we all would describe it in different ways, both in terms of what it is now and perhaps in ways that where it wants to be and what they hope to get out of it. We all have different visions of that. And this has been great to hear everyone's thoughts about that and to see how Chicago Wilderness can be a big tent for a lot of different reasons and a lot of different purposes. And so that's been fabulous. You know, this is one leg of our journey that we're taking now with ICL. I think it's coming at a good time. You know, we've been working on our reinvention, I'll call it, for a couple of years. We're picking up the carcass of the phoenix and seeing if it can come out of the ashes here. And we've made a lot of great progress. So we've made a lot of progress on all of our goals. People have been very engaged. I think it was pointed out at some point today how there's a little bit of unevenness to them, which is to be expected. They've all been working independently. So for that reason, and also to have a better collective sense of where we want to go once we have these goals in final form, we felt this was an important leg of the journey to take and to bring ICL on board. And I am very grateful, Diane and Peter, to your terrific facilitation today. We've learned that working as a network is fundamentally different than working as an individual organization. I think some people, the light bulb went on for them in that regard. And so it's great to be having you on board, someone who has the same passions that we do for conservation, to help us think through how we best function as a network as we continue on to get our goals to the finish line. So what we've been doing today is part of what we'll call the kickoff phase, and we'll have ICL with us for the next 6 months or so on and off to help us walk through this process. In the next steering committee meeting, they will again join us for a similar kind of a kickoff session, although I don't know exactly what it'll look like, but I'm sure it'll be a variation on this theme. And then over the next several weeks, Diane and Peter will work on having some individual phone interviews with some of you. We've offered you up, heads up. So you may be getting a call, perhaps you already have. And then as we get into early summer, we'll be working more on the network development end of things. There'll be a network mindset workshop with the steering committee and with various goal group members as well, with leadership of those groups in particular. And we'll work toward finalizing those goals. And then by late summer, we'll be working more on goal alignment. I think Daniel pointed out early on how we're all at different places, but also how there's a lot of overlap between them, which is fine. We work on a continuum, even though we try and put ourselves into boxes so we can understand and organize ourselves. But let's realize we're all on a continuum and figure out how to make the cross connections between the goal groups so we end up with a fully integrated final plan coming out of this. So during late summer, there will be facilitated steering committee meetings and some online engagement for the broader Chicago Wilderness community to keep all of you and others engaged that we haven't engaged yet. And then finally in the fall, we go toward a full network engagement piece. We have our goals finalized. We'll have a facilitated session with all of you, with the Executive Council, like we're doing today, and hopefully finalize and approve the plan at our October 20th meeting. And then there'll be an online session to roll out these goals broadly to all the membership and to really promote ownership by everyone of our product. And I think we'll be a much stronger, more coherent, more connected community at the end of it all. And I think we can easily communicate who we are and what we want to do to the broader a community of people out there with whom we really want to have the final impact in the end. So thanks again, to Diane, to you and Peter for this session today. And with that, I'll turn it over to Elizabeth to close us out.
Thank you, John. Again, thank you everyone for taking time this morning for the great discussion. And I hope everybody leaves today with enthusiasm and to follow up on what are we going to do to move this forward, because it is about the we. And, definitely those personal connections of who's not around the table today, and to make those personal pieces. So to close, what we always do is just general announcements. So just go ahead and jump in or raise your hand. We'll unmute your mic. And if you got any announcements to share for the good of the group.
For those who can multitask, there's also one more poll open in the Mentimeter. We'd like to know how we did on our outcomes for the day. So if you could just hit that, that'll give us some feedback on that as well. And we really value that. Sorry, Elizabeth.
That's okay, Diane. Thank you. Appreciate you jumping in on that. And then also thank you, Laura, for flashing that up. So we talked about earlier, the Be the Healing Conference at the end of the month. Registration is free. So a great opportunity to continue to advance our Jedi work. And any hands up or jump on in if you have any announcements to share with the group.
This is Jim Anderson. I just want to let you know that the Forest Preserve in Lake County got federal recognition of the Des Plaines River corridor as a national river. So that's kind of a nice additive to the work that we've done along the Des Plaines River. And it's one of those national awards that really does mean something to our Board of Commissioners. And so just like to let everybody know that that's out there. And I'd like to encourage everybody else to think about getting like the Fox River and the Chicago River and other rivers that designation also. So.
Does it mean anything to us homeowners who live on the Des Plaines River?
Yeah, you get more portions of the water. Dave.
Yeah, thank you. That was coming along anyway.
Yeah,
Elizabeth, this is Mark Bowman at the Field Museum. I just wanted to say that in about the first week of May, a management plan for a Calumet Heritage Area will be released by the Calumet Collaborative and the Calumet Heritage Partnership, with organizations that have been working together to produce this. It's essentially a functioning heritage area, and we'll need a lot more interaction with Chicago Wilderness going forward, but we're really excited that this phase has come. Advocacy continues to try to become a national heritage area alongside the I&M Heritage Corridor and the Black Metropolis National Heritage Area in Chicago. But wanted to make that announcement. Watch for that. We'll put it in the newsletter when it comes.
Thank you, Mark. That's great.
Elizabeth, can I jump in?
Oh, please. Eddie may jump in.
This is Cherie Fisher of the U.S. Forest Service, and I'm the chair of the Force of Nature Awards for Chicago Wilderness, the George Robb Force of Nature Awards. So around the time of the next executive committee meeting in July, we're going to have the nominations open for this year's George Robb Force of Nature Awards. So please be thinking about that between now and then. After this extraordinary year that we've all lived through, and I guess are continuing to live through, it'll be interesting to see what kind of work gets elevated this year for recognition. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Cherie. Thanks for your leadership on that. Anyone else?
Elizabeth, this is Jerry Edelman.
Yes, hi, Jerry.
Yes, a quick announcement that Senator Durbin probably on Monday will reintroduce his Renew Conservation Corps Act that has been enriched really with a lot of outreach across the region and country. So just wanted to alert people. It is the most comprehensive program proposed that I think would be relevant certainly throughout the Chicago Wilderness region and across the country. A lot of flexibility. There are other Civilian Conservation Corps proposals that are out there, but I just wanted to alert people, and if you could thank Senator Durbin, that would be great. Also, we're pretty confident that Congressman Rush will introduce it in the House next week. So just wanted to alert people. Thank you.
Thank you, Jerry, and thank you for all of your work on that advocacy to make that happen. And our thanks to Senator Durbin. Appreciate that. Anyone else? One more call. Anyone else? All right. Well, again, thank you everyone for taking the time to meet with us today. We will be back out with more information as we do with our regular monthly e-news and make some personal connections. Our next executive quarterly council meeting will be on July 21st. And it's still planned by Zoom. And again, wish the best of health to everyone as we move past this pandemic world and to continue the great work. So thank you again, and we'll be in touch.
Thank you.
So do we have an adjournment? Who wants a motion to adjourn?
Jim Anderson will motion to adjourn.
All right. Do we have a second?
Susan.
By Kathy. All right. All those in favor, motion by saying aye.
Aye.
All right. Thank you. You guys have a great day.
You too. Thank you.